Hey guys, so in tonight's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the divine masculine and just my connection with it as a woman and my journey with working with personified deity in the divine masculine and what it brings to my path and my healing journey. Now, keep in mind that this is all from my own perspective and my own experiences, so please do with that what you will. And without further ado, let's get into the topic. So, it's no it's no surprise, no mystery, I should say, that my path is very goddess-centric. And I want to say that that's unintentional, but the truth is that it was actually pretty intentional. And that is because although I've said before I resisted working with personified deity for so long, I distinctly and very specifically resisted working with the divine masculine for as long as I possibly could. And even though um, Odin is happened to start everything with me working with the divine masculine and specifically the Norse gods, I still work with him the least, and I still very much center my path around goddess worship. And most of the time in my experiences with Odin over the last few years, specifically, he'll go really quiet around this time of the year. But over the last week or so, I've really been feeling his energy. And I'm actually kind of surprised because I didn't expect this. But it seems to me that he wants a little bit more of my attention. And I think that's kind of what brought me to this video, is that I really wanted to discuss a little bit more about working with Odin and working with the divine masculine and the things that I think I need to overcome still and the things that I am actively working towards when it comes to all of this journey with kind of embracing both my feminine side and my masculine side. I am, for the most part, a pretty dominantly feminine person. And I that is interesting to me though, because I am pansexual. So when I am looking at others, I don't generally focus much on their gender. I more focus on the person that I see. Um, so it's just an interesting thing because for me, I've always very much identified as a very feminine person, but there are masculine things about me. I absolutely love martial arts, and I have since I was a kid, and I took several different lessons throughout my adolescence, even ending in me taking some karate when I was in Japan. And I still, to this day, am very fascinated by martial arts. The other thing that I kind of identify very much in my own personality as a masculine trait or interest would be I love swords and weapons and daggers. Um, and I recently just picked up archery um, as a hobby, but one could argue that that could be feminine as well, because I mean, we could look back at our deities throughout various cultures, and one of the ones that really comes to mind is Artemis. There are many, many female huntresses in mythology, as well as Skadi in the Norse tradition. So that one's a little rocky. And please bear in mind as I'm kind of going through this video, and I don't mean to be so black and white with gender roles and divine feminine and divine masculine. I'm really just kind of trying to paint a picture of my own personal journey. So I don't mean to offend anybody. I'm just trying to words, which is sometimes really difficult for an Aquarius. But I I just really felt the need to talk about why I feel Odin is really trying to get my attention right now, and how I can heal from some of the things that I think he is trying to call my attention to. So, this is my little statue of Odin. I would love to get a bigger one, but I just wanted to share that a little bit before I go into him. So I will reiterate this for those who are maybe coming to this video for the first time, but I know you guys have heard me mention before that I was not raised under any religion, and I did have a slight bout of exploring Christianity when I was about 9 years old, but it just didn't feel right then. And it's strange because I won't say that any of my experiences with the church was traumatic. I just didn't click with it. It just wasn't for me. And I very quickly discovered that it's kind of remarkable for only being 9 years old, but I just know in deep in here that it's just not for me, and that's okay. Um, but I walked away from that experience really having some very uncomfortable feelings towards the divine masculine, so much that it felt like a trauma response. It's a little hard to explain, but I had a very deep aversion to working with any personified deity that was masculine and or male presenting. And I really can only describe it as a deep uncomfort, like discomfort. Um, and this could honestly be linked to many other things in my past, having struggles with positive male role models in my life, but I started to connect to archetypes that were divine or that were masculine presenting that really tended to the things that I felt comfortable with when it came to masculinity. Those would be the magician. The biggest one for me would be Gandalf. I adore Gandalf. He is one of my favorite characters. Professor Xavier from X-Men. Um, as you can see, they probably have a lot of similarities in how they present themselves as a character. They are both guiding figures, kind of wise sage type roles. Those were roles or archetypes that I would pick up upon through pop culture, stories, or anything like that, that I would really connect to and feel comforted by. And um, another perfect example is Balin from The Hobbit. When the Hobbit movies came out, I really, specifically the movies, because the actor that portrayed Balin and just how his character was portrayed in the movies, I was really uh, drawn to that and found him just very wonderful and very comforting. And there's just something about the wise old sage, the storyteller, the wisdom keeper, the guider. And as soon as I started to realize that I didn't have to view male presenting personified deity through the lens of the Abrahamic God, I started to understand that they are not all the same and that I could connect with this in any way that I felt comfortable doing so in order to maybe heal some of the wounds that I carry from masculinity and doing some shadow work on it. And I really think that started to come head to head when Odin came into my life. And he came into my life through a dream. He was the only Norse god that spoke to me that way. He wasn't subtle. Whereas Freya was subtle. And it's interesting because Freya is now my matron deity, the only deity that I've dedicated myself to. But my dream with Odin was definitely, there was no denying. I woke up from that dream and I was just like, yeah, okay. Okay. Hi, All Father. How may I help you? Um, and that was the other thing that made me really uncomfortable was the father figure in that personification. And I know that that has a lot to do with my own father wounds. And it's interesting that I am recording this video on the eve of Father's Day and the eve of summer solstice, but it just really got me thinking, and I really do honestly think that Odin is trying to get me to open up and talk a little bit about this. And I know that there are many of you who do carry father wounds. I know that there are many of you who tomorrow, Father's Day, will be difficult for you. Um, for many different reasons. For me personally, Mother's Day is very difficult because my mother passed away a few years ago. And Father's Day is difficult because of father wounds. So, you know, I think in my experience with Christianity, I started to look at the Abrahamic God as that father figure that made me uncomfortable, and as that like more of the tyrant, truthfully. And um, I don't mean any offense to any of my Christian friends, family, or followers who may come across this video. This is just my experiences, so please let me just once again reiterate that. Um, but I really think that's where my brain went when it came to connecting with male presenting personified deity, and kind of where that wound started, where that wound opened up, and the link that had created in my psyche to my discomfort. And, also genuinely wondering why there weren't goddesses, but, Um, and so when Odin came into my life, I was very uncomfortable. I resisted for quite some time. And I honestly think that I continued to resist until this last week, working with him more deeply. I started to become more comfortable with him over the years, but I can tell now where I'm at, and really kind of feeling this energy that he is asking me to open up and to say it's time to heal these wounds, and it's time to look towards the divine masculine or masculine presence in my life that is positive, and heal those wounds. So I really want to start working with this journey with Odin and finding myself more comfortable sitting in the presence of more masculine energy. That is something that I think will open a lot of doors for me, and it could potentially open some other doors to other deities in the Norse pantheon. Right now, I'm also kind of feeling Thor poking around. Um, it's a little interesting. And I think it's mostly because I have been spending a lot of time sort of contemplating building up my own personal strength and exercise and working with my body. And I really definitely can tell that Thor's like, yeah, girl, get you some. um, so also Minnesota's going through a drought right now, so I desperately need my thunderstorms, and I'm kind of wondering why he hasn't paid me a visit, and I honestly think he's just waiting for me to ask him to. So I will do that. But I really wanted to talk about this, and I'm sorry it's a little up and down with the point that I'm trying to make, but it's really more so I'm trying to express that I really think that a healing journey can happen if you embrace a certain side of either divine feminine or divine masculine, because we all have both of those within us. And we all it's hardly ever, in my opinion, 50-50. It seems to be that we tend to lean towards one or the other, and it's really, I think it's deeply psychological. In my experience, again, I'll say, just because in my experience, I shied away from the one that gave me more wounds. I shied away from the one that I knew if I went down that path and explored that more, I'd have to sit more in my discomfort. And that was something that I didn't necessarily want to do. And now I'm starting to understand that I need to embrace both sides of myself. And I really need to start taking some wandering walks with the Allfather. So I hope this video made sense. I know I say that at the end of all my videos, but I like to ramble. And I know that many of you have requested me to discuss a little bit more about deity work, and this is something that has really been kind of rattling around in my head. So there you have it. So thank you for watching, guys, and as always, blessed be.